Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is my first video, and in this tutorial I will be teaching you how you can make your first cheat in C++. Now before this video starts, I just want to say that game hacking is not meant for destructive or illegal purposes. I do not condone any misuse of what I will be teaching you in today's video. Okay, so game hacking is essentially just a way to manipulate a program into doing what you want. For example, in this cheat we will be changing the health value in the game Assault Cube to give ourselves infinite health. We will also show you how you can locate the memory address where the player's health is stored and explain how the script works. Now, there are a lot of limitations to game hacking, and this video will only cover the surface. This video will be made for beginners/intermediates, but if you are on a higher level, this video can still be a good way to get better oversights over the basics of game hacking. In the future, we will move on to more advanced techniques such as making an ESP, internal cheats, and potentially even kernel drivers to bypass anti-cheats. If this is something that interests you, please show your gratitude by helping the community grow. If this video gets 10 likes, we will make a part 2. Before we get into the code, let's go over some key terms. So every time I say these terms, you should understand to a certain degree what it means. But it could be pretty hard to understand for beginners, so don't worry. The first term we have is process memory. Now, every running program, like Assault Cube, has its own memory space within the RAM of the computer. This is where the game stores data such as health, ammo, and player position. The next term we have is process ID. A process ID is a unique identifier for a running process. We will need this to interact with the game's memory. And then we have memory address. Memory address is a specific location in the process memory where the data is stored. For example, the player's health might be stored at address 0x blah 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 blah. A handle. A handle is like a reference to a resource, such as a process or a file. We will use a handle to interact with the game's memory. And finally, the term read and write process memory. These are functions that allow us to read or write to a process memory. This is possible with the Windows H library, and if you're not familiar with it, there's a really good documentation from Microsoft that I will link in the description. So, now that we've covered the basics, there's still a couple of things I would like to say before we get into this. I want to emphasize that this can be really frustrating to not be able to achieve what you want. When I started game hacking, my motivation was close to non-existent. One of the reasons for this is because of all these mainstream YouTubers telling you it's gonna take years to accomplish even the smallest things. This is not true. I am definitely no programming prodigy, but I was able to make and sell my first undetectable program within the first 8 months of learning C++ and game hacking. And so can you. Remember that this is your journey, and your primary goal should be focusing on yourself and improving your skills. Alright, so enough yip yap, let's get into making the actual cheat. Okay, so first we need the tool Cheat Engine, which I have a tutorial on how to use, and I will link it in the description. Cheat Engine is a tool we will use in this video to get the different memory address that we're gonna manipulate. In this case, we only need the health address. So, I've previously found a pointer to this health address, and you can see its value is 100. If you go into Assault Cube, you can see at the bottom left, my health is 100. So, open Visual Studio Code, or Visual Studio, sorry. Click Create a new project down at the bottom right, and search for empty project. Empty project. It should say C++, window, and console. Double click and name it whatever you want. Press create and wait for the project to load. Okay, now you're gonna see some folders that just spawned. Just click this show all files button. We don't need those. And right click your project name and click properties. In here we have to change some settings. Don't worry, I'll take you through this. We can see C++ language standard. It's set to 14 and we need to set it to 20. 20 is the most modern C++ language, and it's commonly used in modern C++ programs. So we'll use 20 and we'll head on over to advanced. We can see it says character set. Now by default it's set to Unicode character set, but it actually should be set to multibyte. So in the description I have a little documentation where you can read more about this, but basically, unless it's a special occasion, you should always use multibyte. This is for more advanced users to get into, so if I were you, I'd just set it to multibyte, but you can read more from the link in the description. Alright, so add a new folder and name it whatever we want. This is gonna hold the source code of our project, so I'm gonna name it source, and then add a new item called main.cpp. This is gonna be our main C++ file. Okay, so every C++ file starts with including libraries. So we have a library called IOStream. This IOStream library is a library for input and output, and it's basically just a library in C++ full of different functions like character output and character input that writes out to the terminal stuff. Every C++ program needs this, so make sure you have include IOStream at the top of every program. It includes stuff like if and else statements and everything. You can read more about this in Microsoft's documentations. I will link it in the descriptions. Right, so we also want to include windows.h. This is a library that interacts with the window API, and that can be pretty hard to understand. So basically all you need to know is that it allows us to interact with other processes, and by the way, a process is a program that's running on a computer. So when we are reading and writing process memory, changing the health value in our game from 100 to 1000, for example, we need this Windows library. Alright, let's get on over to the main function. So int main, this is basically initialize main. It initializes the main function, and we need to set the console window. You can do this by writing out set console window and then putting the name of your console window. So this is gonna be the name of the cheat. So let's do tutorial cheat, and then do semicolon at the end. You need parentheses right there. So set console title. What am I doing? Set console title and do it tutorial cheat. So this set console title function is a part of the Windows H library, and it sets the Windows title to tutorial cheat. So if you want to see the window title of your application, any application, you can hover over it and you see Assault Cube. It's just called Assault Cube, and we're gonna name our cheat window tutorial cheat. Alright, so now we need to get the process ID. So by doing that, we need both the get window thread process ID function and the find window function. So we're gonna put these both in the same line, just for making it easier. So get window thread process ID. Again, this is a part of the Windows H library. Get window thread process ID, and we're gonna find window. So what is find window? Find window A. You can learn more about this in the description. As I said, it's not important why I need the A. What's in these brackets, no these parentheses, is not that important. But you need to find window A and do null. It's the class name, and then window name. You have to do the name of the window you want to make cheats for. My window is called Assault Cube, so Assault Cube, and then you do so basically this is gonna find the process ID of the window with the name assault cube. Now both of these functions are part of windows.h library. So if it successfully finds the process ID from the window assault cube, it's gonna print out, I found the process ID, here's the process ID. So to do that, we actually first need to define our global variables. So let's define our global variables. We need a variable for the process ID, and we're gonna put dword as the type. And basically what dword is, it's just a way to store data. It's just like an integer, except that it's unsigned. This basically means that instead of being able to store values from -2 billion to a billion, it stores from 0 to 4 billion. So this makes it perfect for storing values like memory addresses. This is because memory address can be pretty long, and it has pretty large size usually. So we make a variable for PID. You also learn this in like 4th grade math, I think, at least my country. And then you do dword for health address. This is gonna hold the health address, and this is gonna hold the process ID. So the ID of the process assault cube. Every single process on our computer has a different ID, and that changes each time it opens, I think. So that's why we need to make it find the process ID instead of manually entering the process ID. So now we've defined our variables. We also so now we can make it print out the process ID if it found the process ID. std character output. This again is from the iOS stream library. So character output failed. Now actually in the if statements, what a good practice is to always put an exclamation mark and do the error message first. So basically the exclamation mark means that it's the opposite. So without an exclamation mark, it will be if it successfully found the process ID, but with an exclamation mark is if it didn't successfully find the process ID. So if it can't find the process ID, it's gonna print out failed to obtain process ID. Now you could and standard library end line. This basically makes our program look better, but you could just do normally get win the third process ID and do here's the process ID. But you should, for good practice, do if it failed to obtain the process ID. That's what I like to do, and of course it's your choice, but you should do it like that. Alright, so we can see we have some errors here. That is because we don't have this in brackets. The if statement always needs to be in brackets, in curly brackets like this, and so it's gonna print out fail to obtain the process ID, and it's gonna wait for 1 second. So that's 1000 milliseconds. It's gonna wait, so the user has time to read the error. Now let's make an else statement. If the process ID was successfully obtained, it's gonna print out the process ID. So here is the process ID, and then we can do PID. So why do I put PID here? It's because we're pointing back to the variable we made earlier. This PID variable is getting pointed over here, right? So yeah, that's that. And let's make it sleep, so we have time to read this. Sleep 1000. Oops. Just like so. Right. Now we can open the process. So what this means is giving our program full access to the process. So we're giving our program, our cheat, full access to the assault cube process. So to do this, we have to make a handle I explained this earlier at the overview in the beginning of the video. So each process, open process, and then we give it all access. So process all access, you can see this. Process all access, false, and PID. Now, if you're ever unsure about, like, yeah, why do you put false in the middle and why do you put PID here? You can hover over this, you can see it. I don't know why this isn't working for me right now, but if blah 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 blah. Oh, here I see the problem. You need a and PID, like so. Then we can return 1. So basically, what return 1 means, if there's an error in our code, it's gonna shut off the program. So as you can see, failed to obtain process ID, then return 1. So it failed, so it's gonna close. If it's successful, you're gonna do return 0 and it's gonna close, but we want the program to move on, so we don't put anything here, right? So now there's the issue. Nope, I found the issue. We need the parentheses right there. Okay, that's my bad. We need a parentheses right there to close off this. Okay, I'm dyslexic and autistic, so I couldn't see that. Okay, so let's get back to our program. Handle H process. This makes a handled for the, and we're gonna name it H process. Again, it's we're defining a variable, so we're defining a variable H process with the type handle. Defining this, and we're gonna make it if H process equals 0. If it doesn't find the H process, null. I don't know why C++ does that, but you need to use null. I think you can also use 0 like that, but null works. If it can't find the H process ID, we have to character output that it couldn't find the process ID. No, failed to open process, sorry. So failed to open process, and usually when it fails to open process, that means the user doesn't have elevated permissions to do this. So a fix to this is usually try running with administrator. Usually it's because the person isn't running the program as an administrator, right? So we can make it sleep so the user has time to read this, and return 1. Again, return 1 is for when there's an error in the code. So now we have set our console window, we have gotten the process ID, and we have found the Windows Salt Cube, and we've given the program full access to the Windows Salt Cube. The next step now would be to make a variable and define a variable for the new health value. What I mean by this is, at the bottom left you can see my health is 100, but let's say we want to change this to 1000. Then we need to make a variable for the new health. So I'm gonna name the new. We're gonna make it an integer because it's just a small number. So let's make it hold 99999. So that's our new health. To do that, we can name it new health and then equals our value. So our new health is gonna change to 9999. Alright. So now what you want to do is make a while loop, while true. And in C++, a while loop is basically something that repeats on and on all the time in the program. So it doesn't happen once, it happens infinitely. So while true, if get async key state, what this does is basically it checks if you press a certain key, and we're gonna do key menu. So that's basically the alt key on your keyboard. I don't know why it's menu, it's just, again, that's something C++ does, or more specific Windows library. So we're gonna check if the user presses the alt key, and in here we need to put this symbol, and we're gonna do 0x8000. Now why the fuck did I put that, you might wonder, but it's not important. It just, you can learn more about this on the documentations I don't know this, you don't need to know this. I'm experienced in C++, but I never really cared about this. You can just put it like that. Okay, if write process memory, right, now we're gonna write the new health to the health address. So every address contains a value, and the value of the health address in our game right now is 100. With the program, we want to change it to the desired health value. So we want to change it to 9,999, and then we need to, to do that, we need to write the process, write to the process memory. So write process memory, h process. We defined this earlier. It gives full access. So we're stating that we want full access. LP void. This is just something you need to do. Health address and new health, then do size of new health, and then do null. Now, why did I just do all that? If you hover over this, you can see all these different things that this wants. Now this is just a bunch of random yap, okay? You can search this up on the documentaries, on the documentations, sorry, but again, it's not important. What's in this parentheses you can always find on Google, and just a little copy paste is always allowed, but make sure you understand what the program is doing, okay? These small things doesn't matter, right? So if it writes process to the memory, character output, health updated to 9999, right? It updates the health to 9999. Character, and then we're gonna end line, right? So now we need a else statement. Else, if it didn't write to the process memory, if it failed, we're gonna make it print out failed to write process memory. Search output failed to write process memory. Exiting. Then we put this function called get last error. What this is basically, you might wonder, why do we put this get last error if this is our error? Well, that's because get last error isn't just C++ error. That's a function from the windows.h library, and it gets the window error. So if there's an error from the Windows side of things, it's gonna print out the Windows error as well. So we're gonna make it sleep to make the user get time to see the message. Sleep for 1 second. Actually, we can sleep for 2 seconds now, because the last error might be longer, and we can return 1. So return 1. Again, that means the program has failed. So now we need to put this new health in another bracket, another parenthesis like this, or else you'll get errors. That was my bad. And now we need the program to wait for a bit. What I mean by this is make it sleep for 200 milliseconds. That's to avoid the user from spamming the health thing and lagging out the computer. We don't, and also we don't want it to check every single second, so we're gonna add a 50 millisecond delay to this. Right. So now finally we need to close the handle. To do that, you do close handle h process. Now, what is closing the handle? So what this close handle does, it basically saves memory, and it's just a good practice overall. You don't need this in the program, but it will help you save memory, and as you get more advanced, this will be used a lot more. Right, and you're gonna put return 0. Return 0 means the program has succeeded, and that's exactly what we want. So now that we're looking at our beautiful program, we don't see any mistakes. It should work. Let's try building it. Up here you can see debug and x64. Well, for testing purposes you should use debug, but since this is our last release, this is the one we will be using, we're gonna put release. So every time you're building your actual final file that you're gonna send to people and like, hey, here's my cheat, you gotta put release, okay? And debug for testing purposes. Change this from x64 to x86. x86 is for 32-bit programs and x64 is for 64-bit programs. And most modern applications use x64, but as the Salt game is a 20-year-old game, we're gonna put x86. Now, in a future video, I'll show you how to find out whether or not your game is x64 or x86. It's really simple. You could just search it online, but yeah, it's not that important. And by the way, I forgot, guys. Here you can see set console title. You have to put set console title A. These things, these small things, you don't have to learn. Okay, let's try building it. Build and then build solution up there, and it should say build succeeded. If you get errors, either something in your code is wrong or something in your project settings is wrong. So again, that's character set multibyte, and in general C++20. So if we now try opening the cheat we just made, we should see it works. Okay, let's try. Gotta double click this. Here's the process ID. That's exactly what we want. We see the process ID there. And if I click Alt in game now, we should see the health changing from 100 to our desired health. As you can see, okay guys, I'm back. I forgot one thing. We forgot to define our health address. We need to define this to the address we just found its cheat engine. So we can see the health address is this right there, and we can see the value is 100. So you have to include the address to the program. Now, before every single memory address in games, you have to put 0x. Basically, this 0x stands for hex or hexadecimal, and it's used for every single address in the game. This is hexadecimal, this address is hexadecimal, this is hexadecimal, so it's hexadecimal, so that's why I need 0x in front of it. It's hexadecimal. So, save the program and let's try build it again. Now it said succeeded. Let's try open it. It says here's the process ID. Let's go into the game. We can see our health at the bottom is 100. If I click the button, 99999. Let's go. We can see it says here health updated to 999. I forgot to put a new line character, that's why we get both on the same line. To fix this, go into Visual Studio and then look for where it says health updated to 999. Look for what it says. Here's the process ID, and then add end line to this. Basically makes it so you don't have to get both of these on the same line. So remember guys, when you're writing code in C++, it's extremely important to write your own code. If there are parts of the code you don't understand, don't just copy it. Take the opportunity to Google around and find out what it really means. Now of course you can always copy some parts, but what's important is that you understand what the program does and how it works. Well, that's it for today's video.